Hello developers, welcome back to I Code It. Today we're going to exploring feature toggles and branch by abstraction. This is the two very interesting and important or useful techniques. We're going to talk about that in details with a online ordering application. So let's get started. Before we dive into the code, let's talk about what feature toggles are. So feature toggles are a powerful technique that allows the team to release the system without actually changing the code. The toggles are stored in somewhere else, and you can turn it on or off without actually publish your code. It's a separate system. So I will give you a very intuitive example here. So let's say you have a toggle in a system somewhere, not in your application system. So by default, you can see something like this on the page. And when you turn it on, you can see something different. And if you find something goes wrong, you can easily turn it off and the user will safely land to the alternative. So normally you would store the toggles in a file or a system outside of your normal application. And it is very useful for at least a few scenarios. Like firstly, if you are developing something that's not ready to release yet, you can put that in behind the toggle. Secondly, you can do A/B testing. That means you want to group people into separate segregations and then testing which one is better, which branch is better. For example, you have menu without image and menu with image. You want to say if the image is more attractive or people tend to order particular items with the image or without image. So you can group people into two groups and you can turn on the toggle for, let's say, user located in Europe. And then you can see if that has some patterns by reflecting to the toggle. If, for example, you turn it on and you see a lot of traffic into a particular item, that means the image works. And you probably need to, turn it on for all the users. The third one I can think of is if you made some mistake in your system, you can easily switch to the old one. That's a quick rollback. You don't have to fix the defect and then release a new package. Instead, you can just simply turn it off on another system, and the user will not be able to see the defects version. So the system we're going to work on today is a online ordering application. So it's basically allowing a web application that allows the user to order on web. They can pick up the item and add it to the cart and then check out in the shopping cart. We don't have the fully implementation here, but we do have the code for this page. As you can see, there are a few sections on the page: starters, main course, drink, snack, and a dessert. So this is a very simple page. And for the change we want to make today is we want to add a few more details for each item. So currently it's only the name and the description. But in a backend, when they return the structure or return the data, it has a lot more information like the nutrition, like the calories in it, and the image, for example, but we are not surfacing them into the application. So in this session, we are going to implement, enhance the menu item, but we don't want to change the old one immediately because we want to say the A/B testing. We want to say if the people prefer the simple version or the enhanced version. So we will need both exist. So I've already got the code in here. So basically we have a application, and in application there is a heading, and in the section, the main section, there is a navigator, which is this little navigator here, and there is a menu list, you pass in the grouped menu. So basically it will be starter. Under the starter section there are two items, this tomato soup and salad. So there's a menu list here. If you go into the list, it will render the category first, and then inside that category it will render a lot of menu item. So for each item it will be the item name, description, and the button to add to cart. So it's a very simple structure here. So for the menus, I have hosted them in Gist. You can see it here. And also I have a local copy, which is in the mocks, and I'm using Mirage.js. If you're not familiar with Mirage.js, I have a video, you can check it out. So basically we will use a fixed server in our local for development. And when we ask for, can you give them the menu, it will request to this URL. But in the local, it doesn't actually request the real server, the real Gist. It will simply return our local menus, which is a JSON file here. So that's pretty much about the setup. So apart from the menu.json, we have a feature toggle.json defined in the gist. For this gist, we will use that as a third-party application. It's a separate system to our React application. So we can control this by editing this gist, and we can turn it on and off when we publish our application and see how it can impact our system behavior. And in the code, we have a use toggles hook. It will fetch the toggles from that gist and then save that into a toggles array. And it will expose a function called isFeatureOn. You can pass in the feature toggle name or flag name, and it will return if the toggle is empty, like for example it's still fetching, so it will be false by default. And then once it's fetched, and it will use the value and return to the calling place. That's a very straightforward toggle. So let's go to our menu item here. So let's say we want to add more details in a menu item. We want to show the nutrition information when the toggle is on. So let's change the type first, because that will be a unbreaking change, meaning that we don't necessarily break anything. So for the nutrition info, and in the types, let's go back to the types, and we'll say nutrition info is a string, right? So the code is still working fine. It's just like before. And we want to, in the menu item, to use toggles. Use toggles, it will return the isFeatureOn function. So we will use that one. Here is featureOn. And we will use this function here. Let's say isFeatureOn the new menu list. If it's on, we will show item the nutrition. Otherwise, we don't show anything here. And if we look at the page, it's not changing. And in our local, remember we have a mock server, and it will return the toggle when you fetch the when you request the feature toggle, the JSON, it will simply return the toggles array. And in our local, this array is new menu list, and it's off. Let's change that to true and see how it goes. And immediately you can see it shows up a nutrition info on each item. That is great. As part of the requirement, the product owner, they want to show something else for each category. So they want to say if the toggle, the new menu list toggle is on, it will show an emoji as part of the category title. So that means we need to use that toggle again from here. Use toggles, and it's is feature on, and it will be something like this. We will use it's feature toggle on. We copy it here, and we say if feature toggle on, we will add something more here. What is that? It's called new menu list. So if we're using the new menu list, if it does, we will show something like delicious. Does it have delicious? I don't know. Yeah, let's try this. Otherwise, it will be undefined, and this will be part of this is a category, and then we will put something before them. So basically it says if there is a new feature menu list enabled, we will show this delicious emoji. Otherwise we show nothing. And now if we go back to the change, okay, sorry, I put the addition $sign here. Cool, we have that on the page. That looks fine. But you will soon realize that if we have the feature toggle checks in here and also in here, if we have more components, we probably will get its feature toggle on in everywhere. So that is not ideal. And it is important to not duplicate ourselves. And the solution is using the feature toggle in one place and control all the branching. So that's the second part of our session today, which is branch by abstraction. So Martin Fowler has described this in a very detailed application, in a very detailed article here. I highly recommend you to have a read. So basically it says we have a package that is used in many client code, and you want to have a new implementation. So instead of changing the old one immediately, we will need to extract a additional layer which has a similar or exactly the same interface as the old one, and then you pointing all the client side into that abstraction, and then you will put the implementation behind that interface or abstraction. So abstraction basically saying abstraction itself does nothing, and you can have multiple implementation of that abstraction, and then you started to implement a new bug-free version, or using the fancy using all the fancy techniques to implement the abstraction layer, and then gradually pointing the client to the new implementation. And once all the client side are pointing to the new supplier or new implementation, you can kill the old one. So branch by abstraction normally apply to larger architectural changes, but I think the fundamental idea is same to our case as well. So we will borrow this idea in our application. So we will have an abstraction component, which is basically asking the toggle to say if you are on, I will switch you to this component, otherwise it will switch you to another one. So instead of doing the use toggle in all the places, we don't do it here anymore, and for the list, and we are not doing that here as well. So it's still the old code. So instead of changing them directly in menu list, menu items, first let's do a simple refactor, that is move components, and we will create a folder called menu item or menu list old, and we move this into the old folder, and the code is still working. And then we will create a new component It's called menu list.tsx. In the outside package, we will use the exactly interface like this one. In the outside menu list, we will do something like this, and we'll export it as a default export, for example. All right. So in this component, we will say is feature on, use toggle, and if we'll simply do return is feature on new menu list, new menu list, and otherwise we will simply return the menu list old, and then we import the menu list from the menu list old, and we call it menu list old. Oh, it's not default export, which is fine, as menu list old. Right, and we will have a menu list new. We don't have it yet. We can create an empty folder called menu list new, and we can put a simple menu list.tsx there, and export const menu list new, or menu list simply. It accepts the same parameter, props list, and we can call it prop list new. And then we will simply return the feature toggle by saying if the toggle is on, we will return the menu list new. Otherwise, we return the menu list old. And obviously, we'll need to pass in the properties to the add one. So for the new one, we'll have the exactly same parameter, and we will copy this over to that component as well. So for the new implementation, we passed in this and we return nothing for now. Right. So now we have a abstraction, which is a menu list. It has exactly the same signature as the old one, and inside it will check if the feature toggle is on. If it does, it will return the new, otherwise it will return the old. So currently the menu list doesn't have the consumer yet. The application is still pointing to the old implementation, so we can now easily change this to the menu list. So probably we need to change this as a not default import, because it will be easier for the consumer side. So now we can simply remove this old. The menu list now is pointing to the menu list. It's an abstraction, it's a wrapper, and it's pointing to new and old conditionally. And if we now look at the page, there's nothing here, and that's because the toggle is on at the moment. If we go back to toggles and change it to false, and then we go back to the application, it should be something like this already. And if we go to the menu list new, instead of return now, we say let's put it inside a div. This is the new menu list with more information, and we toggle it on again, and we should be able to see this message shows up. That is great, and we can turn it on and off in the real world from the gist at any point. For example, if we found some defects in the new, for example, the image cannot be shown, we will simply turn it off, and once we fix that issue, we turn it back on again So that will be very flexible for the product to continually monitoring and continuously monitoring the behavior and change that accordingly. All right, so that's pretty much about the main content of this session. To recap, we have used the branch by abstraction. We firstly introduced a menu list component. It doesn't have a consumer when we doing making the changes. Basically, we make a if else inside the menu list. If new, we run the new. Otherwise, we run the old, and we move the old into its own folder, and then we do the switch here. The benefit obviously is we don't have to touch the old component at all. So there is a drawback here. If your feature toggle is lived longer than a couple of days, you may want to make some changes before the toggle is on. You may want to make some change like bug fixing in the old one. So you will very likely to make the same change in the new one. So that means you will have a duplication issue. And unless you are doing some experiment, like you want both the new one and the old one to coexist for quite a long time. So I will put the code into a repo and link it in the description below. If you found this useful, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the iCoded channel for more developer tips and tricks. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in next time.